got me a gal, she lives on a hill, a 3 feet wide, I call her Baby Lucille. She sees me a coming, wants to grab my hand. She says she's taking back, I keep my lover man. She wants a love, 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 lover man. She wants a love, 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 lover man. So love, 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 love for all I can. When she kisses me, she don't wanna stop. My arms bug out, my legs to the bar. When I kiss her, she says, turn on the fan. You certainly are my lover man. She wants a love, 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 love for lover man. She wants a love, 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 love for lover man. So love, 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 love for all I can.
Alright guys, this is Ron and I'm back as promised. Today we're going to do part 2 of the Arizona Sound. Today we're going to be looking at VIV Studios. We're going to be looking at some Arizona artists and Arizona records. Then later on I'm going to take a little field trip over to the last VIV Studios location. VIV was known for some great garage in the 60s, probably more so than audio recorders, so stick around and enjoy. Alright guys, let's get started with part 2 of the Phoenix Sound. VIV Recording Studios and Labels. And what I would like to do is just kind of give a brief timeline of VIV Studio. And it was founded in 1955 by Lee Hazelwood. And he had really wanted to start a label, do producing, and songwrite as well, and he did accomplish that. After the success of Sanford Clarke's The Fool, he got a job offer to go to LA and become a producer for Dot Records, which he did accept. And one of his recording artists, Loy Klingman, he's pictured right here, he was already 1/3 owner of VIV. So he decided to go ahead and buy the rest of the company from Hazelwood and continue the company here in Phoenix. He got himself a couple of partners that knew how to record, and they were basically technicians. And he would continue with them in a little studio on Indian School Road. And after a couple of years, they would have to close that studio down. And Loy broke up with the 2 other partners and took the business to his house. He built a homemade studio inside of his garage and continued to record and release records from his house between 1960 and 1965. In 1965, he opened up a studio on Bethany Home Road and continued to record and release records out of that studio until the early 70s. Okay guys, I'm ready to start showing some VIV records that came out of VIV Studios. And this is actually the second record that was released on VIV in 1956. Jimmy Spellman was a young teenager, and he was like 17 years old when he got signed to VIV. And his first record came out in 1955, and this is his second record in 1956. And he was 18 years old. He was still in high school. He went to West High, the same high school I went to. And he had the first 3 records on VIV, and then the second artist to be signed to VIV was Loy Klingman, who would later become the owner of VIV Records. And if you'll notice, there's an address on here. And I believe that that is Lee Hazelwood's house. If you go to Google Maps and bring that address up, you'll see the house. That was common on a lot of these local records. The owner of the label, or perhaps the manager, would put their home address on the label so that people could contact them. And this is pure country. Viv started out as a country label. And if you notice, this one is actually autographed by Jimmy Spellman. So that's a pretty neat thing to have, being that he was the first artist signed to Viv. And I actually got this record in a thrift store years ago. And when I got that one, I also got this one along with it. This is the third Jimmy Spellman single, and it's also the third release on Viv. And again, it's country. And on the flip side, it has She Wants a Lover Man. And that's the song that we heard at the beginning of my video. The first rockabilly song to be released on Viv. Okay, and also if you'll notice on the writing credit, it says Naomi Ford. And I found that that was a synonym for Lee Hazelwood. And if you remember, that name was on the Sanford Clark The Fool record that was in my previous video. And I've done some studying, and I found out that was a synonym for Lee Hazelwood. What he did was he took the name of his wife, which was Naomi, and then he added Ford on to for the last name. And the reason he did that, he thought it would make him look bad if he owned the label, produced the records, wrote the records, and played the records on the radio all at the same time. So that's why he went under that alias. And you'll find that on the earlier Lee Hazelwood records. This is a picture of Lee Hazelwood relaxing at Audio Recorder Studio in the late 50s. This was probably during the time that he was producing Duane Eddy. And here's a shot of Jimmy Spellman. Alright, this is a very rare and interesting Viv release from 1959. And it's on the Flagpole label, which was a spin-off label from Viv. And it's by Lonesome Long John Roller, Long John's Flagpole Rock. And Lonesome Long John was a disc jockey here in Phoenix, and his plan was to set the world's record for flagpole sitting. So he set up a stunt with Reed Mullen Ford, and they took a brand new Ford and put it on the top of this huge pole at the dealership out in the car lot. And his plan was to stay up into that car 244 straight days. He did succeed, and he did break the world's record for flagpole sitting. There's an address on the label. That is the address for the car dealership, which was Reed Mullen Ford. The song was written by Ned Mullen, so he probably was a family member. I don't know what his relation was, but it's just a really cool rockabilly number. And this was actually recorded in the car while he was breaking the record. And I'm going to show some photos that were taken, and you'll find this quite interesting. Alright, there he is on top of the flagpole in the car. And there's his signature, Lonesome Long John. And here's another shot of him hanging out of the back of the car. What they did was they removed the back seat of the car so that people could be hoisted up on a wooden seat. And once you got up to the trunk, you would crawl out of the seat, in through the trunk, and you could crawl into the car. Here's a couple of photos of him up inside the car, and you can see he's actually got a TV set there, and he used to do his radio shows. He used to broadcast right out of the car. So he lived and he worked in that car. Here's another shot of someone being hoisted up into the car. That's quite possible that might be Al Casey. Here's another shot of him up into the car. And that's Al Casey right there at the recording session for the song. They actually recorded the record in the car. And that's Al Casey's wife, Corky. She was also a musician. I'm going to get a shot of some information about this. So hopefully you guys can freeze frame and read it. This is a little more text that I'm going to show that you guys can read up on this. Okay, this is the flip side of the record, and it's by Ned Mullen, Peaceful Livin'. And he's the guy that wrote the A-side, Long John's Flagpole Rock. And like I said earlier, this record was recorded in the car while he was doing the stunt. They actually pressed the records while he was in the car. And he sold the records out of the car. What he would do, he would lower a bucket on a rope. You would put your money in the bucket, and he would pull the bucket up, put a record in it, lower it down back to you. So this record that I have right here was actually sold by him out of the car.
Lonesome Long John at the top of the pole, and a new world's record is my big goal. I'm a flagpole sitting in a brand new Ford. Yeah, I'm a flagpole sitter 'cause I'm gonna win a new Ford. I'm 40 feet up in the Phoenix sky, and I long to come down as the days roll by. I'm a flagpole sitter sitting in a brand new Ford. Yes, I'm a flagpole sitter living in a brand new Ford.
Alright, this next one is by the Gigolos, Night Creature. And the flip side is Swingin' Saints. And both of these are instrumentals that are very much influenced by the Dwayne Eddy's twangy guitar. And in fact, at one time it was rumored that Dwayne Eddy did play guitar on this record, but I've since found out that that is untrue. And there's a address on here, and I don't know what that originally was. It may have been a house. I Google mapped it, and it's now part of a parking lot. And you can see an old telephone number there. And I'm not exactly sure if this was recorded at VIV, but it does have Malapai Music on it, which was Lloyd Klingman's publishing company. So he was definitely involved with this record, so it may have very well been recorded at VIV. This next one is by the Castaways, and it's from 1961, and it's Michelle Yellowbird. You can see it's produced by Lloyd Klingman. This is a promotional copy. This is the second VIV label design, but it's the promotional version in tan. The stock copies would have been in a lot of different colors, multicolored label, and pretty good early folk record. Nothing spectacular. And down at the bottom it has his Lloyd Klingman's house address. Okay, now we're moving into the garage era, and this one's from 1965, and it's by the Doorknobs. And this is a really good rocker with a wild break, kind of a mixture of 1950s, a little bit of 1950s and garage mixed together. And I believe this is actually the second pressing of this. The original pressing would have been on the multicolored VIV label. So this is actually like the third VIV label design. And in the band was two brothers, Floyd and Jerry Westfall, who later had some national releases under the name Floyd and Jerry. And the flip side's kind of a little Mercy Beat styled tune. Good record. And this is one of those national releases by Floyd and Jerry. That these are the brothers that were in the Doorknobs. It's on double shot, and I think this is a promotional copy, as it says promotion in motion. And the flip side is this old wreck, and I think this is from 1966. And they had at least, I think they had at least a couple on double shot. I'm not exactly sure right now. And this one is by the Outcasts. This is their only record to come out of VIV, and it's on the Solo label, which was a spin-off label that Lloyd Klingman used to come out with. He used to come out with all these different labels for VIV. This is just an excellent garage record. Good two-sider. Okay, here's a wild one here from 1966. It's by Destiny's Children, For Me. Just a really awesome fuzz monster. And this is an excellent two-sider. It's got collectors on the flip. This is one of the more valuable and better singles to come out of VIV Studios. Just awesome. And this next one is Hobbit, Top of the Morning, just a really cool punker. And the flip side is Why Don't You Grow Up. It's got a little bit of an Eastern psyche vibe going on it. Real cool record, 1966. The Hobbit only had 2 singles, and previously they were known as a band called The Henchmen. And you'll see their name pop up a little later in this video. And this one is the second one by The Hobbit, And it's time passed. This is just an awesome psychedelic garage tune. And this is actually a white label promo. And Lloyd Klingman used to hand stamp the labels, and then he would hand write information on the labels. There's his phone number, his name. He used to write master demo on it. A lot of people thought that these were test pressings, but actually these are promotional copies. Alright, this is a great garage comp called Legend City. It came out in 2001 on Dionysus label. And it features garage records that came out of VIV between 65 and 67. And this came out on vinyl as well as CD. I have both. And Legend City was an amusement park that closed down here in Phoenix in the early 80s. It was kind of our version of Knott's Berry Farm. And most of this stuff is stuff that was released, but there is some previously unreleased stuff on here. And you'll notice there's a band on here called The Hearstmen. Those are two previously unreleased tracks. The Hearstmen were actually the same band as The Hobbit. And it has the Wildflowers on here, which was Michael Bruce's spin-off band when he was still in the Spiders. You'll notice the writing credit says Michaels instead of Bruce. That's because he was trying to hide the fact from the rest of the Spiders that he had done the spin-off, he'd done a couple of spin-off records. So on the writing credits, he actually changed his name to Bruce Michaels instead of Michael Bruce. And those are excellent tracks there. Just a really excellent garage comp. I highly recommend you guys search this out. The vinyl might be tough, but you might be able to locate the CD. Okay, this is a list of VIV records and spin-off labels from VIV. It's not totally complete. This list is from the 90s. There was quite a few records to come out of VIV, close to 100. I do not know exactly how many is on this list, but I know it's not totally complete. There's a list of some of the stuff that was leased nationally. Alright guys, we're over on the west side of town and we'll be stopping shortly at the former location of VIV Studio. So as soon as I get there, I'll let you guys check out the area. Okay guys, we're on West Bethany Home Road in Phoenix, and this was the last location of VIV Studio. And back in the 60s, this was actually an insurance office, and Lloyd Klingman had built a little studio in the very back of the building that he used from 65 to about 1973. And this is where some of the finest Phoenix garage came out of. Bands like The Outcasts, The Henchmen, The Hobbit, The Wildflowers, Destiny's Children. Just luckily the original building is still here, and this is just west of I-17, and in the very back you can spot Camelback Mountain right there. Okay, it's time to close out our video now. Okay, VC, that pretty much concludes my video, Arizona Sound Part 2. But before I go, I'd like to give you guys a little thanks. I've been in the VC now approximately 4 months. And a short time ago, I reached approximately 110 subscriptions. And I would like to thank all my subscribers, all the broadcasters that promoted me in their channel. I mean, you guys did a lot. After you spoke about my channel, I saw a spike in subscriptions, so you guys were definitely a big help behind that. So thank you. And the record that is playing right now is by a band called the Tongues of Truth. They were a local Tucson garage band, and they were previously known as the Grodes. And this is their record that they wrote and released, and this is the original version of Let's Talk About Girls that the Chocolate Watch Band ended up doing. So I'm going to say goodbye for now, and I'm going to let that play for a bit so you guys can check it out. So until next time, guys, thank you and goodbye.